Hey, what's up, everybody? DFS Rico coming at you with my picks and insight for this NFL Week 6 Draftkings slate. I will have my favorite picks and my favorite stacks in this video, and I will have timestamps. So if you guys want to skip through like quarterbacks, running backs, favorites, all that kind of stuff, you will be able to do that easily. But yeah, let's get to it. Just make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Please like if you can. It really helps me out, motivates me to continue making videos and stuff like that. So let's get to it. First thing I like to do when I start my kind of just breaking down my lineups is I like to go over the over-unders over here on I like to use Roto Grinders. They usually have them. You can really use anything, though. You can just kind of look up over-unders online and find them. But I like to run through them. Just try to target the games that have the high over-unders. Obviously, Vegas predicts that they're going to be high scoring. They do that for a reason. You know, they use all their stats, analytics, and stuff like that. But just going through it right now, I mean, you see a lot of Houston Texans. You see the Titans at 53. Just scrolling down, you got the football team and the Giants in a pretty low one. And then you got the Vikings and the Falcons at 54.5, which is pretty high. So that's a game we're going to look at targeting. 54.5 right here with the Lions and Jacksonville, two terrible defenses. So that's a good one to target. This one's kind of sneaky. The Browns in Pittsburgh, it's going a little overlooked as of right now because both teams have been playing pretty well. I mean, I think it's an undefeated team versus a 4-1 team, if I remember correctly. Then you got the Ravens, you got the Eagles, 47.5. You got the Jets and Dolphins, and then the highest scoring one is actually the last one, which is 55.5. And they actually are going overlooked, and I think it's more so due to pricing, not just because of the score. It's just guys are priced higher than some of these guys in these other high scoring games. I mean, it has a 1 point higher, but this one's at 54.5, and it has a lot of cheaper plays, which I will be highlighting in this video. So let's get to it. First thing I want to talk about is quarterbacks. I'm going to run through the quarterbacks, some of the guys I'm looking at early on. I will skip through some guys, but I mean, for the most part, I like a lot of these quarterbacks. Just depends who you want to stack them with, but obviously we got Aaron Rodgers up top at 7.5K going against Tampa Bay. We saw the over-under on that one. Now, obviously, he's a little going overlooked, just like I said, because he's 7.5K. When you got cheaper guys like Deshaun Watson in a high-scoring game versus Tennessee at 7K, I like him. I like him a pretty decent amount. I think he's one of the guys I will be higher owned, especially with Tennessee coming in with a short week. They did play on, was it Tuesday? Yeah, they played on Tuesday, so that's a lot different. You know, usually we have the guys playing on Monday, and then they come back on Sunday, so they do have even one less day compared to that. So I do like Deshaun Watson. It looked a lot better last week with them after they fired their head coach as well. Got Big Ben, and we saw the high score on that game. But Matt Ryan has been underperforming lately, so I know he will go overlooked. Last 3 games, he's been terrible. He hasn't thrown a touchdown in since I think it was since week 3, the beginning of the game. I think he threw one in one of his first drives in that game, and then he hasn't thrown a touchdown since, which is kind of worrisome. So he will have low ownership if you do want to play him as a sneaky one. Tom Brady, obviously, at 6.5 in that 55.5 game. Cam Newton, I do like him as a one-off. You don't have to stack him just because he has that rushing upside. He likes to get those touchdowns. He had, 2 rushing touchdowns each in the first 2 games. And then against Las Vegas, he didn't get any, but they just kind of pounded the rock. I think Burkhead had all those touchdowns that week. But so I do like him as a one-off. Then you got, obviously, Minshew's a beast. Well, not a beast. He's in a good matchup versus Detroit. This game's going to go very high owned. It's going to be one of the highest owned games on the slate with Minshew and Stafford. So just so you guys know that, if you do decide to play Stafford, he will be one of the highest owned guys on the slate at 6.3K in a good matchup. Hasn't been amazing all season if you look at his numbers. First 2 weeks, he didn't have Kenny Galladay. He's looked better the last 2 weeks. And a good matchup, though, you know. A lot of people, that's what you want to look for is good matchups, especially if you're playing 1 or 2 lineups. I would probably recommend playing a guy like Stafford, Minshew, one of these cheaper price guys that's in a really high-scoring game. Then we got Cousins. I like him as well at 6.1. He's getting a little bit of ownership as well. 6.1, I like stacking him with guys like Thielen, Jefferson. He's good. Especially with Dalvin Cook out, we don't know how they're going to look. Obviously, Madison came in last week and looked very well as well. I mean, he just kind of you didn't even notice the difference, honestly. He is kind of the same kind of player as Dalvin Cook. We've seen him do it before. Steps in and just plays really well. But if Atlanta comes to play this week, I will expect that. Probably that could easily be the highest scoring game on the slate, in my opinion. Teddy Bridgewater, staying away from him versus Carolina, versus Chicago, just because he hasn't played any good defenses other than Tampa Bay. The Chargers are okay, but all other teams he's played where he's looked pretty solid in, just not the toughest matchups. The Bears are a tough team. I'd rather just pay somewhere else. Pay up for a guy like Stafford or Cousins, or even pay down for a guy like Fitzpatrick in a good matchup versus New York Jets. New York Jets, we know how bad they've been. He's been a stud this year. Fitzmagic is alive and well. After the first week versus a tough defense like New England, he's came back. He's been performing very well. Over 25 fantasy points in the last 4 games. He's been looking good. Can't complain about him, honestly. I think that's the cheapest. If you want to be different, I would take Foles and Tannehill. Tannehill has been looking good in some games this year. He looked good last week. He looked good against Jacksonville. He has another matchup where I believe they will be behind. I know it's kind of like Tennessee's 5-0, Houston is 1-4, but Houston should be a better team. They're a lot better team than what their record shows, I think, in my opinion. So I think this game could be a high-scoring game, and I could see Tannehill having himself a good game, especially since Houston is a bad defense. And then I do kind of like Nick Foles pairing him up with a guy like Allen Robinson. Robinson has been looking very good this season. He's gotten over 9 targets in every game since Nick Foles stepped into the lineup. So those are just some of the quarterbacks I'm looking at early on right now. I like a lot of these guys. If you want to pay up, obviously you can pay up for guys like Jackson, Rodgers, or Brady. If you just want to play it safer and be with the field, you're going to play guys like Stafford, Minshew, Cousins, Fitzpatrick. Those are probably the 4 guys that will be the highest owned. So just know that. Keep that in mind. Let's jump over to running backs. For running backs, you got Christian McCaffrey up top. Obviously, he's still injured, so his price is coming down. I'm going to be surprised when he comes back and then, DK releases their prices to he's at $8K or something, and he comes back. It's going to be crazy. Dalvin Cook is still questionable, but isn't practicing. I'm assuming he's out for sure if he's not even practicing today. So, obviously, that's going to open up guys. They did a proper job pricing up Madison, which will be the highest owned back on the slate, 7.2. Atlanta's been struggling with backs. I'm fine with not playing as much as him. I predict he's going to have a lot of ownership in cash games, even smaller single-entry GPPs. He's a guy I would want to drift away from in bigger GPPs to the guys around him, because you can easily get up to Derrick Henry at 7.3. And I would trust Derrick Henry more than I would trust Madison at this point in their careers. Henry has done it. We know what he can do. 30-point games. We know how good he is, man. We know how good he can be. So if you want to play it safe, I would just pay up for a guy like Henry. But Madison is a pretty good play as well. I'm not going to not play him. Don't avoid him. 7.6. Aaron Jones in a tough matchup. Scrolling down, you got Connor versus Cleveland. A lot of people won't be playing him, so if you do want to be different, I could see you guys wanting to play him. Mike Davis at 7K. I'm still interested in him just because he's getting 8, 9, 6, 10 targets in the last 4 games since Christian McCaffrey went down, and that's what I like to see. This game will be kind of hard to move the ball, I think, on both sides of the game. And especially tougher for Carolina is my expectation. So I don't know. I like Mike Davis, but I don't like him as much as I've liked him the last couple of weeks. I will say that. Kareem Hunt is questionable at 6.9. So let's see what he's looking like. He practiced Wednesday. Tough defense with Pittsburgh. I don't know how I feel about him. More of a GPP play. James Robinson at 6.8. I do like him. If you predict that Jacksonville's going to be leading this game, you would assume James Robinson is going to be carrying the ball a decent amount. Miles Sanders, not a big fan of that versus Baltimore, since I do think they will be behind. But Jonathan Taylor, this guy needs to get more touches, man. If he's getting 20 touches a game, very good play at 6.4K. I expect in this game them to get ahead and try to keep the lead. So I see Jonathan Taylor getting, somewhere around these 17 touches at least, 17 carries at least. So I do like him. I have a good interest in Jonathan Taylor this week. You got Joe Mixon at 6.2. I do like him as well for a GPP play. A lot of people will be off of him. He came out of that big week, 31 touches He had 45 fantasy points, followed it up with another 30-touch game. Even in a game where they were losing, he still got a ton of touches. So I'm very interested in him. So like you could notice he's not getting left out of the passing game either these last 2 weeks. They've been including him more even when they're behind, and that's what I want to see. Sneaky play, I think Joe Mixon is. A lot of people will be off of him. 6K, Ronald Jones. Not a bad play. He is playing out the backfield. 5 targets, 9 targets, 4 targets the last 3 games. I'm not sure if Fournette's back. Fournette, let's see. Game log. Hasn't played since week 3. He was a limited participant, so just keep an eye out on that before you do decide to play him. Looks like Melvin Gordon. He's not going to get in trouble for what he did, so he will be playing. I'd rather just pay down for David Montgomery because a lot of people will be on David Montgomery this week. I think everyone sees how many targets he got last week. They also didn't sign Le'Veon Bell, so that is a benefit for him. He looked very good last week. Carolina is one of the worst run defenses in the NFL, so I do like David Montgomery a good amount. One of my highest owned backs for sure, but so will everyone else. Myles Gaskin. If you think this game blows out and you don't want to play Fitzpatrick too much, Myles Gaskin will probably be the way to go. You see in the game versus Jacksonville, 22 carries. They were very well ahead in that game. So he's going to get his touches when they are ahead, and he's going to get his touches even when they're behind. So he's a good play. I think he has a good floor just because he is involved in the passing and the running game, no matter if they're ahead or behind. David Johnson, 5.4K, another play that will go overlooked, but I do like him as well in this game. He was very involved last week as well. He's gotten over 2 or more receptions in every game. He's getting about 3 or 4 targets a game. I mean, if he breaks down in one of these games and he gets 4 receptions and he catches all his targets, it's going to look very good for his price tag. So he just needs a touchdown, man. He gets you a touchdown plus the way he's been producing. So obviously, it's not the best numbers, but I'm telling you, at his price tag, if he gets you 18 to 20 points, you'll be pretty happy with that no matter what. I think there's no one else down here I really like. Devontae Freeman, if you want to play him. James White, 4.8. My bad. I don't have an issue with him. I kind of like Swift. He hasn't been getting that many touches, but if I expect this game to be high scoring, when he is getting touches, he is producing pretty well. Eventually, they're going to have to start incorporating him into their lineups, especially since they drafted him pretty high. So I don't mind him. Phillip Lindsay at 4.3. We'll see what he does in his first game back. I'd rather just avoid these guys down here. I'm going to stick more so to these middle pack guys and maybe pay up for a little bit for the top guys. But I like this 6K range, 5.5 to like 6K range more than I do the bottom or top guys, I think. But yeah, let's get over to wide receivers. We got Adams at 8K up top. Obviously, we know how good he can be when he's healthy. It looks like he is playing this week. He will go a little lower owned just because of his price tag, but it's all about matchups. I always talk about matchups, and it's just if you can get someone at 6K that might have similar upside for the guy with 8K, why not play him? But it's also a way to be different if you want to play these pricier guys, and they are more consistent than these 6K guys. Obviously, these guys are 6K for a reason compared to a guy like Devontae Adams. Then you got Calvin Ridley, 7.8. Another guy I like. I like both of these guys a good amount. If I pay down at running back, I could see me just paying up for guys like this instead. Thielen, 7.3. You could play a game stack with Ridley and Thielen, and I wouldn't be too mad at that. Allen Robinson's been a stud all season, so I'm a big fan of him. We still don't know about Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, so keep an eye out on that. Just keep an eye out. I like both of them, but just keep an eye on it. If one is out, and one plays, I like the one that's playing, obviously, a fairly good amount. I'm hoping Godwin plays. Have him on my fantasy team, so hope he plays. Will Fuller, 6.8. I like him as well. We know what kind of upside he has. He has 30-plus point upside. He's shown us 20-plus point upside both times, and he's looked very good. Julio Jones, I'd rather just pay for Fuller. I'd rather pay for Juju. Marquise Brown, still averaging the most air yards per game. He's getting a lot of targets and through the air, deep passes. He's just not catching all of them. He did a lot better last week. Finally got us a touchdown in the season. He's going to be playing in a tough matchup, but I like him. I mean, it's not a bad play. Beckham is questionable. Let's see if he does the negative, but won't return to. Okay, but I think he plays, so I think he's going to play. I don't mind him. I do prefer Godwin. Obviously, if Evans is out, I do have a good amount of interest in Godwin. Devontae Parker in this same game. If you think this game stays close for some odd reason, I don't mind playing some Devontae Parker. It didn't look as good last week, obviously, but I still like him. Chark Jr. in this game didn't participate Thursday. Banged up heading into the teams. He could probably play. If he doesn't play, obviously you like Chenault a lot. You like guys like Conley as well. Just not a bad play if he plays. I like him. Like I said, this Detroit-Jacksonville is probably going to be the highest owned game on the slate as far as stacks. You just know you're not going to be alone if you do decide to play it. Robbie Anderson, we know how good he's looked. He's practically the leading receiver on the team. Much more targets than DJ Moore. So you got DJ Moore at 5.9. If you want to be different, I'd assume you just play Moore over Anderson. Moore didn't look bad last week, 19.3 fantasy points. He's just not getting as many targets as Robbie Anderson, and I really like target share, and receivers. Jamison Crowder getting looked over. I mean, he's gotten 10-plus targets in every game this season. Over 20 fantasy points. I'm telling you, I am a big fan of Jamison Crowder. Play him if you can afford him. Especially since a lot of guys will be playing Kenny Galladay at 6.2. If you, for some reason, predict this game doesn't go high scoring, you see the Jets get behind, playing some Jamison Crowder instead of Galladay would be a nice way to pivot off of him, off of the high ownership that Galladay is going to have. Jefferson in that Atlanta game. Tyler Boyd, I like him. 5.8. He didn't look as good last week. He still got 6 targets. I mean, he's still good, man. He's just had a tough matchup versus Baltimore. Nothing that I'm going to be too worried about. It's Baltimore. Terry McLaurin, 5.7. I don't know what's up with this guy's price. He should be a mid 6K guy, in my opinion. He has a huge upside. He has a pretty low floor, but he has huge upside. This game, he was going against Jalen Ramsey, man, 6.1K, and they bumped him down 400. Of course, he's not going to be as good. We know how good Jalen Ramsey can be when he's performing well. So, I like McLaurin a good amount, and I'm pretty sure the field likes him a lot, too. Got A.J. Brown, 5.6K. I like him. He looked good in his first game back from injury. 7 receptions, 9 targets, 21. Had a touchdown, 82 yards. He looked good, especially if guys like Corey Davis and Humphreys are out. I like him a good amount. Edelman is questionable. Slayton looked good last week. But Chenault, I mentioned him. I think Jacksonville's been doing this for the last couple weeks where they've been limiting their guys, but it's limited participant. I think he plays. If one of the others out, I do like either Chark or Chenault. Those are the 2 guys I really like from Jacksonville as far as receivers. Claypool. I'm not sure if Johnson is out, is he? Deontay Johnson. If Johnson plays, I really just rather avoid all of them. Probably just play some Juju or maybe Johnson, I guess. Johnson's not a bad play at 4.9. We know how good he was playing before he's been getting injured. He seems to be very fragile, though. So just be wary of that. You got Brandon Cooks at 5K. I like him as well. He bounced back after that donut of a game he had in week 4 when everyone was high owned on him. Nobody owned him last week. Has 12 targets, 8 receptions, 161 yards, 33 fantasy points. Was a beast. Keelan Cole, I guess, if you want him, if one of those guys is out from Jacksonville. Corey Davis likely won't be. So it looks like A.J. Brown's going to have some good ownership because he looks like he's not going to be activated this week. Or we'll see. Corey Davis. Preston Williams looked good last week. 5 targets, 106 yards, 1 touchdown, 23 fantasy points. If you want to pair him up with a guy like Fitzmagic, I don't have a problem with that. Alshon Jeffrey still hasn't played. He's been practicing with the scout team and it appears unlikely to play Sunday. MVS, if you don't want to play Devontae Adams, but you want a piece of this game at 4.6, Scantling is not a bad play. Randall Cobb, just running off some guys that I do like at the cheaper price. I'll go into detail if I do like them a little more. I think that's really it. Other than at 3K, obviously Jeff Smith. If this receiving corps for my New York Jets still has injuries, 3K, I don't mind punting him at 3K. 11 targets in this game, 9 in this game. If you're going to give him even 7 targets at that price tag, I'm all over that. I'm going to play that guy a good amount. Just got to keep an eye out on those New York Jets injuries. I mean, let's look at it really quickly. See what they're looking like. I don't know why it's doing this. I try to look at it for you guys, but it's not working clearly. There you go. Crowder, Bell's obviously gone. Perriman looks questionable. Expected to suit up. Oh, he's expected to play, so I don't know. Maybe playing some Perriman if you really want to play him. Probably, I don't know. Jeff Smith kind of scares me now that some of these guys are coming back. So, but it looks like Barrios is there. If you still want to punt him, I don't have an issue with it, but we'll have to see how he plays in the first game back where we get Perriman back in that lineup. But I think that's really it for receivers. I mentioned the guys I like. Scroll back if you want to hear about them even more. Tight end, we got Andrews, Gesicki up top. Gesicki is going to be very high owned in this slate. And Jonnu Smith. I think Jonnu Smith and Gesicki will be two of the highest owned tight ends on the slate. Just my opinion. Noah Fant is a good play if he plays. I don't mind him. I feel like they're going to be behind. But I think New England is very good at targeting the best player on the opposing team and removing them from the game. And Noah Fant is probably the best receiving player on their team, so be careful. Play him, rather just pay for Gesicki, Hawkinson, or Jonnu, honestly. Andrews, obviously a touchdown machine, so I don't mind playing a little bit of him. Tanyan, another touchdown machine. He's been beasting it. Been getting a touchdown the last 3 games, had 3 in the last game. Especially if this game predicts to be high scoring and you want to be different. Paying up for a guy like Tanyan, where a lot of guys will be playing Jonnu, Hawkinson, and Gesicki. And it should be good. Then you got Zach Ertz, 5K. He's obviously coming down. You got Jimmy Graham. Tight end is always just a toss-up for me. I kind of just try to pick whatever I can afford as long as it makes sense. Obviously, if I can afford a backup tight end, I'm not going to play it. But, I mean, if I'm down here, if I got 3.3, I don't mind playing some Logan Thomas. If I got, who else do we got down here? If I only got enough for Drew Sample or Brait. I think Gronkowski's a little hurt, so keep an eye on that. Brait might be a good play at 3.5K if Gronkowski is out. Let's see. He was a limited participant, so keep an eye out on that. And then Fells for Houston has looked pretty decent. When he gets a touchdown, he's good. I mean, if you just want a piece of this game and want to be different, I have no issue. You got Eric Ebron as well. You got Dallas Goedert still on the IR, so obviously Ertz should get his targets, but they are going against Baltimore. Just be careful. But I think that's really it that I wanted to go through position by position. Let's go into the stacks that I like, and I will kind of just run through some of my favorite ones. So the first one I want to talk about is obviously pairing up Matthew Stafford with any of his receivers. The main guys I really want to talk about in this game are Galladay. You can play Marvin Jones, and then you can play Hawkinson. I think those are the 3 guys I would want to play. Obviously, I don't recommend, unless you think this game's going to go for like 90 points total, a stack like this would be fine, right? But if you just want to pair a guy up with Stafford, one guy, I would go with Galladay. But you can mix and match these guys, and if you want to be different, I'm pretty sure you can play Marvin Jones and Hawkinson, and you'll be different than everyone else, because I think everyone will include Galladay in their Matthew Stafford stack. So what that opens up, playing this game like that, any of these guys, let's say you pick 1 or 2 or 3 of these guys, whichever way you want to do it, and then you pair up a guy with Jacksonville. You want to bring it back with a guy like Chark or Chenault, depending who's out. Obviously, Keelan Cole you could play, or Conley at 3.6K has gotten some targets here and there. But obviously, he's more of a play if these guys are out, in my opinion, if guys like Chenault or Chark are out. But if everyone plays, let's assume, I just like Chark and Chenault, maybe a little bit of Robinson as well. But that's really all I would be looking at. And then you kind of like bounce it over to the other game. So let's go over to Gardner Minshew. I mean, same way, you pair him up with the guy like Chenault or Chark, let's say, one or the other. Those are the 2 guys I really like. Obviously, like I say, pay attention to injury, but then you can run it back with guys from Detroit. You can run it back with one guy from the other team. I always just recommend one guy unless you predict it's going to go, like I said, for 90 total points or over. You got guys like Galladay, Jones, Hawkinson. Those are the 3 guys I would focus on, and that's pretty much all I would want to play if I was to be running it back. Maybe Swift as well if you wanted to. But that's really it. Those are some of the stacks that I do like for this game. Coming over to another stack I liked, obviously I did mention I did like Houston. Let's talk a little bit about the Houston and the Tennessee game. Houston, if I'm playing, obviously you're playing Deshaun Watson. You can pair up, you can put David Johnson and Fuller, Cooks, or Cobb. Those are probably the main guys I would want to stack them with. If you want to punt, you obviously play Fells, but if I want to just make a couple lineups, Probably play Watson, some Fuller and Cooks. That's probably the most common one that would be used is Watson, Fuller, Cooks. Like I said, you want to be different. You're going to want to pair up Watson with Cooks and Cobb or Watson, Johnson, and Cobb. That's very different, so just know that. But me, myself, I think I'm going to like Watson, Fuller, and Cooks the most. And then just pairing them up, obviously, with guys like, let's say if I went with something like this, I would want to pair them up with maybe A.J. Brown or Jonnu Smith. Let's say it looks like Corey Davis is probably going to be out, so maybe even Humphreys, throwing Humphreys in there for a little bit, 4K if you just want to save a little bit of money. I do like Humphreys a fairly good amount. Sorry about that. It looks like the New England Patriots are canceling their Friday practice after a positive test, so we'll have to see about that. Keep an eye out on that. But yeah, I think that's really it for these guys. If you're playing the other side of the game, obviously, like I did mention, I do like this game as well. I do like Tannehill, pairing him up with... and then the other stack, you can run it back with Derrick Henry, just because, assuming so, the game is going in the way of Tennessee. Derrick Henry will be running the ball a lot, and then the Texans will be having to throw a lot, which will obviously be the reason that Hopkins, Watson, and Fuller and them are all getting more points. But Tannehill, obviously you got guys like, let's pair these guys back up, A.J. Brown. Most common one will obviously be Jonnu Smith, but then Humphreys, and if Davis plays, I don't mind him either. It looks like A.J. Brown is going to play, though. He didn't practice Thursday, so beware. There's a bunch of injuries on this going around, so just keep an eye out on this. Don't just lock your lineups in today and then hope that they're good by Sunday, because that probably won't be the case. But just any of these guys, obviously Corey Davis, boom. You want to pair him up with any of these guys, and then you're going to obviously want to pair up Fuller or Cooks, like Cooks or something, to save you some money. That's a perfectly fine stack right here as well, or maybe even David Johnson, because you assume Houston Texans will be ahead and they'll be running the ball a lot. So it just kind of depends which way you want to play it. And the last one I really want to talk about is Miami and New York Jets. So let's clear this one out. We got the last one. We got Ryan Fitzpatrick. Receivers, we got Parker, Preston Williams, and then Gesicki are probably the main three I like. And obviously, if you want to play Gaskin instead, it's fine as well. But these are the guys I would want to pair him up with if I'm expecting them to have a bunch of pass attempts, bunch of high-scoring games. This is the way I would want to play them. Any of these guys, obviously 1, 2, or 3, however many you want to feel comfortable with playing. Most common one will obviously be this right here. And then pairing them up with someone from the other team would be this. So this will be the most common one. So if you want to be different, you can obviously play like Perriman, Jeff Smith, Hogan, or you can just play Preston Williams and Gesicki, or Preston Williams and Parker, whichever way you want to be. I don't really like the other side of the game. Who's playing? Joe Flacco. Didn't look good last week, but who knows? He could show up. I don't want to play him. So I'd just rather play the Miami side of the game, and hopefully it stays close somehow. But if it is staying close, obviously you're going to want to play some. You're going to assume Joe Flacco's having a good game if Fitzpatrick is having a good game as well, because it has to be a high-scoring game. If Miami gets ahead, you're going to want to play a lot of Gaskin instead of any of the Miami receivers, honestly. But I think that's really it, guys. Thanks for watching. I really do appreciate it. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. I appreciate every like, every comment, every subscriber. Thank you, guys.